me, Rick.
Well, I can't take any action.
You can't take any action.
Can't start the meeting.
We can't start the meeting and say that. Should we give him a call?
Yeah, I haven't been given a call.
See that? I can take the chair seat one day and everybody abandons.
People knew you were going to chair, I guess that's why you come, but I'm here, just remember that. Rick. I'm here.
Thank you. I'm here for you too.
Thank you.
Lance, good morning.
Good morning. And how are you today?
Extended for 10 minutes waiting for somebody to show up.
Well, we know Rick's not gonna be here in jail, so we got Bruce, he's our.
I'll wait to call.
Good morning.
Sarah? Sarah?
Sarah now. It's all one word.
Oh, Sarah now. Sarah. I've been calling you Sarah for 3 years now. You just tell me it's Sarah now.
Stand corrected.
I stand corrected.
Well, I just told a story when I was little, we moved to New York from Arkansas. All the little girls in the apartment wanted me to say something. Sarah, Sarah, talk to us. And I'd say, what do you want me to say? And they'd go, ah. So when you got gone, I would never be Sarah again.
That's fun.
Like you missed it.
Lance, she's one of the founders of Island Dreams.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's a pleasure.
Kids are buying
Nice
it.
to meet you too.
Well, Dorothy Cleveland lived
Well, they
across
sold
the
it.
street from me.
This is
Uh-huh.
Dr. Johnson.
She got me in.
Well, good for her.
You're over the age where you didn't look black.
He's on his way.
They decided that, you know, those big places were good. Whether they didn't people are good, but they come out
For vote,
like the-
so just do some shifting around.
Okay. And they bought a house about 5 years ago and then got the price. And so we decided, you know. and
Well, you can
actually with
discuss, you
children,
just can't take any action, so you can do your reports.
Yeah, there's another report.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and start and we will, we want to, so let me see here.
Well, it's officially not a meeting.
We got a story about it.
I've got a couple reports.
We had guests over, we just all sitting around big house.
Can you do that?
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Okay.
And whatever else people do when they're.
Okay, for those of you that are present, we aren't going to have a quorum for approximately 30 minutes. We've got our chair is on a vacation, I believe. Jill Johnson is ill, and she has my sympathies because I know what she's sick with in advance too. And Bruce Allen is late, he's on his way. So, and we're going to open the meeting, or we're going to just going to open with discussion and go through the reports, but we can't take any action until such time that we have our quorum here. Okay, so give us about 30 minutes and bear with us, already. And we can't open the pledge, right? Okay, so just rise and please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so what we're going to do, because we can't keep votes on the, and we have no special guests here today, so we're just going to start off with Ken, Executive Director's report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, the first thing I'll bring up is a letter that's it's been passed around and is in front of you from the Northwest Clean Air Agency. We just received this the other day, a couple days ago. It's addressed to Peter Schramm, our facilities manager. And I'll go ahead and read it for the record, but it's a great award for us. The letter from the Northwest Clean Air Agency reads, I am pleased to inform you that Island Transit has earned the Northwest Clean Air Agency's Partners for Clean Air Silver Award for 2016. We're enclosing a window decal so you can advertise your achievement. Decal's already on the window. The Silver Award recognizes business in Island, Skagit, and Whatcom counties that demonstrate perfect compliance with air quality regulations for at least 3 years. The 394 businesses registered with our agency, your business is one of only 23 to earn the Silver Award. You should be proud of your contribution to keeping our air clean. For more information about cost-saving energy efficiency and pollution prevention measures, please visit the website. Congratulations, Mark Esbenson, Executive Director.
Congratulations.
Yes.
That's good.
Again, congratulations to
Yeah.
you and your crew.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I may real quick, I sit on that board.
Yeah.
And these selections aren't made, actually I'm the chair of that board now.
Wow.
And they take these selections and these awards very seriously. They're pretty strict agency, so it is something to be proud of, pass on to people.
Yeah.
And we take the environmental aspects of this facility very seriously too, with the waste materials and the waste oil that we have and treat it appropriately and reuse it and recycle it. And so we take all the environmental clean air functions very seriously here. Second item, information item in front of you is an amendment in the legislature regarding the study of including language to require studies of inter-county transit services before state funds are provided or distributed to transit agencies that are providing inter-county transit services. My information is that for us to move ahead with any sort of, for the state to move ahead, the state transit agencies to move ahead with any sort of inter-county, for progress in inter-county funding or inter-county or state assistance on inter-county services, that the legislature is requiring that the appropriate planning activities be conducted before actual funding considerations are made. So this is a transportation amendment that's currently been proposed in the House to allow for planning of inter-county transit services. So this will be something to discuss with our local representatives whenever possible. And a lot of this information is already either provided or is available, so it's just a matter of providing justification to the legislature on the importance of inter-county public transit.
Yeah, this looks to me like it's a good way for us to lobby the 2017 annual budget.
Yep. Exactly. So there's that item. Let's see, and the last item I had is actually going to be before the board to be considered for approval, but I can give some background information on that item at this point in time. Is that correct? So I can go ahead and save some time by providing the background information. And Bruce was involved in this subcommittee decision, so even though Bruce is not here, he's very familiar with the information I'm going to provide to the rest of you. Regarding the recommendation for consulting services for the award of the compensation study. The subcommittee met, which is the finance committee, made up of Bruce and Jill. We met on Monday? Tuesday? Robin? I think it was
They
Tuesday.
met Monday.
Monday. And we worked with, and Robin and I met with Jill and Bruce. We went over the process and the candidates that provided submissions for the project. I'll just go down my list of information here regarding the process and the committee's recommendation. 23 firms were contacted to submit RFPs for the compensation study for non-represented employees, including a review of all non-represented positions besides salaries. 2 firms responded out of the 23 to the February 12th deadline for proposal submissions. Cabot Dow Associates of Bellevue submitted a proposal of $32,175. And Hay Group, which is an international human resource consulting group out of Philadelphia, submitted a proposal of $55,000. Based on a list of specific scoring criteria, Cabot Dow Associates was selected by the evaluation subcommittee for the project. Following are the reasons that Cabot Dow was selected to perform the work. Number one obvious reason was lowest price. However, they also have considerable experience and knowledge in organization structure and compensation analysis. They're based in Bellevue, with majority of their client list including a broad range of public agencies located in the greater Puget Sound region. Excuse me, they have a significant amount of experience working with cities, counties, and transit agencies, including Spokane Transit, Community Transit, and Whatcom Transit Authority. Being locally based, Cabot Dow is able to minimize travel time and costs during their project schedule. I might add there, the Hay Group consulting team was out of Philadelphia and California primarily, team members. Cabot Dow is able to complete the project in 90 days, which was also proposed by the Hay Group, although Island Transit's preferred time frame for completion was 60 days. So the 2 submissions included 90 days, so they were both the same, but our request was 60 days, which neither of them thought was enough time. Dow's budgeted quote of $32,175 is $12,175,000 over the budgeted amount. Budgeted amount in the 2016 budget is $20,000. However, the additional funds will be drawn from unanticipated increased sales tax revenue. Their sales tax revenues are up considerably, and Paul can go into that in more detail, but the additional funds for this project will be drawn from the unanticipated increased sales tax revenue received for the month of January. And then upon Bruce's arrival, we can get into maybe his ideas or his thoughts on it, but he and Jill both were in favor of Cabot Dow. So that will be formally presented when there is a quorum. And actually, I guess I can take any questions on that information at this point. Yes, sir.
And this is strictly for the non-represented
Yes.
people? Because we probably feel they're being undercompensated?
Well, there's no assumption that they're under or overcompensated. We want to make sure everybody's in line. Because there hasn't been such a study for years and years and years in this organization. It's been very piecemeal along the way. So it's time to regroup and you know, get the entire compensation package, you know, on a sound footing.
I just wonder why the agency would spend this amount of money when the agency itself could do pretty much what Cavadao is going to do. I mean, they're going to look at other agencies comparable to this, see what their specific positions and job duties and responsibilities are, living in an area where the economy is as such, where the taxes, et cetera, are, the cost of living. Isn't this something that we could kind of do a survey of, looking at the various counties in northwestern Washington in this area, to find out if the job duties and responsibilities and titles are the same, that we're either behind or we're right in the ballpark, and then determine perhaps, you know, a boost in cost of living or something like that, and have representatives here from those departments look into it, along with the agency?
Yeah.
That's a long question, I know.
No, and I'll respond from my experience, Lance, that, you know, I appreciate your thinking on that, and yes, it can be done. However, I have myself been involved in compensation studies internally in an organization. It takes a lot of time and a lot of resources to pull that information together, but probably more importantly, I think it's critical in order to preserve the type of information, the legitimacy of the information being collected, that it be done by a neutral third party. I think that's important to the process too.
I would agree with that.
That's what I just written myself a note here. There have been comments from the public in the past about people being overcompensated. There have been comments from people that people are undercompensated. There have been downright accusations about the good old boy club. And this brings in a completely objective point of view, an outside entity, no possible influence, or it just guarantees the integrity of the process. We did this at the county at the request of the bargaining units. We did it countywide for both non-represented and represented employees, because they were under the impression, and you know, it was amazing that once the study was done, we found out that there were some people undercompensated, and we found out that there were some people that were grossly overcompensated and made adjustments therein. And at the same time, the same bargaining unit that requested the study, when it came back that from an independent review and job descriptions and everything were evaluated, and what it was in comparison with their comparables, there were about 60% of them that come to find out that they were overcompensated. And so, of course, at that point, everybody's going, well, no, we don't want this study, and it's too late now, because this is what we're going with. So it guarantees the integrity of the process. And you know, there have been claims and remarks made. I've heard them anyway, and we've heard them here in these meetings from public comment about, you know, that there are people that are getting special consideration and such, and it's just eliminates all that.
And I'd like to, Lance, I'd like to add to Rick's comments on that, you know, I hate to use the overused term of transparency, but it also provides, I think, a pretty solid level of transparency to the public in terms of the agency's desire to you know, make whole the workforce as far as what the proper compensation levels are.
I was gonna add too that it's not as easy as saying we're gonna take a business manager from this agency and a business manager from another agency and compare, because somebody really has to look at both job descriptions.
Right.
Because they could be, one could be paid a lot more, and you think, well, then that's not fair, but then you start looking at the job description, oh, well, they also have these things added. So it's more than just looking at titles with other organizations. You really, and I know at the county, that's what they had to do, they really had to look at the jobs, because they're different everywhere.
Yeah.
And that was the process we used too when we went through and with all the different department heads and other electeds and gave them our results. There were some folks coming to say, well, Bobby does this. We're not evaluating Bobby. This is the job. That's what we're evaluating. And the good thing that we did do, because there were several people that were considered, or several positions that were deemed to be overcompensated, nobody got penalized. In other words, we didn't come through and say, okay, well, we're going to cut your wages. That did not happen. But what did happen was it says, okay, what we're going to do is, you'll continue to get COLAs and everything else, because this is what it's been in the past. But as that job is replaced through attrition, whether somebody moves on to another position and now we have to fill that position, or they just move on to another agency, or whatever the case may be, when that position was refilled, it was at the new compensation levels. That way nobody got, it wouldn't be, I don't think it would be fair to go in and say, well, we're going to slash your pay. No, that did not happen.
Rick, I just want to go on record as saying that the represented people are never overpaid.
I'm sure they're not in their mind.
Just have to admit that. Thank you all.
I think, Mr. Chairman, that completes our reports.
Okay, so we'll just wait.
Well, I have something I'd like to just share with people if I can.
Sure.
Well, I just wanted to share being up close and personal with paratransit these last few weeks. I have a staff member who was pretty significantly injured in an accident and required some major surgery down at Harborview. And when she came back from there, she missed about 3 weeks of work, but then now has to be in a wheelchair for about 5 weeks. But she was feeling good and wanted to come back to work, so contacted paratransit, and Dee went out and talked with her, and she's now using paratransit and able to get to work. And she cannot say enough good about the drivers and the whole experience. And we're thrilled because we really needed her back at work. And she doesn't have family around here, and so if she did, she would not be able to be back at work with it if it weren't for paratransit. And she just, every day she comes in, she has stories about the drivers or other people that they're picking up, and she just raves about.
That's great.
So it is really up, and we so appreciate it, because like I said, we really needed her back, but there was no way.
Is she able to work, continue a full-time schedule?
Well, it's a little less than full-time, but that's okay. I'll sort of take what I can get. And so we just work around, the schedule that she can work out with paratransit.
That's why I was
just
asking if the schedule, the paratransit schedule is able to.
Well, we're able to, and her job is flexible enough that we can, like one day she might work 10 to 4. She's only a 3/4 time person anyway, so we just work her hours around that. And she's delighted to be back, because she's actually feeling good, but she has to be pretty immobile for several weeks, and so she was going stir crazy at home. So we really appreciate that.
That's great. Good.
And she does have some very funny stories about the drivers.
I just wanted to ask, doesn't have to go on the record, but the firm that is conducting the study of candidates to fill the CEO position have not extended an invitation to the union president to have her interviewed. And she's a little concerned about not having been invited. Ken, could you inform them that I think it would be appropriate, since she represents so many individuals, and being close to those individuals and what their feelings are. I know the board's been interviewed, and I'm sure a lot within this office have been interviewed. But I think it would be appropriate that they do that. What's your
The board is directing the firm, so I would say that's, that's the board's decision if that's something we're.
And we, Jill and I, well, and you met with staff on Camino, Jill and I met with people here, and we passed all of that information on to
I understand.
that
and
organization.
Rick and I were representative people
Right.
over there, and but there is perhaps information that hasn't come through, and I think it's appropriate that the president of the union be interviewed by that search team also. Would you not agree?
I don't have a problem with it.
But I don't have a problem with it, but at this point, Rothman has, it's closed, is it not?
Well, the process for applying is closed.
Yeah.
But I would defer to Robin, who's kind of leading the staff part of this project. Is there an opportunity to still include input from union president?
I imagine so.
Yeah, I would think so.
So it would be by phone call. If the board wants to do that, I can
I'm fine with
set that
that.
up.
I'm not so opposed to a phone call, but why would it be that way? I mean, are they so far away that, we
They-
actually live on the other side. Where are they
True,
located, Robin? I'm
true.
sorry.
That's a good point. I think they're, I want to say,
Is it downtown?
Mhm.
yeah,
So-
I think it's Issaquah.
Oh, no, they're in Issaquah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that could be arranged in person. Kathleen has to go to Tacoma quite often.
I'll talk, I need to talk to Rothman because it's their time, it costs up, it'll cost us for
Yeah,
that in person too, so.
Well,
let
for
me
starters,
see.
we can't authorize expending any more funds without action.
And they're
Secondly, the
doing-
process has
they're
been
doing
put out
another
there, and it was
recruitment.
advertised, people knew. I've had people from local people that just called and they knew I was on the board, called, and I directed them to Kaufman's website. There's a process for applying for the position.
I think
To
what
my
Lance
knowledge,
is
Kaufman's
talking
not going
about,
out and delivering.
Lance is talking, I'm not sure, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but Lance isn't talking about the union president applying for the position. He's talking about the Rothman interviewing the union president to get her opinion, like they came in and talked to the board for what you wanted, what you were looking for in an executive director. So Lance is asking
That's right.
that the union president have an interview with Rothman to tell them what
Oh,
the union
okay, I see what
wants.
you're
You
saying.
thought she was applying for it?
Yeah, that's what I was
You know, honestly, I hadn't thought of that. My God, That's exactly right. Thank you.
I'm fine with it. I'm fine with that.
Okay,
Maybe as soon as possible on that, Robin.
yeah, because the process is moving forward.
Yeah.
The process is moving forward and moving forward quickly.
Thank you very much.
Okay, then I guess here is the chair's report. My chair report is quite simple. Thank you to the facilities people for the nice shelter you put in over on Camino. The people are gonna love it. And I might add, for the record, that this was used materials and everything else. The cost to the transit agency and the public was the wages of the individuals that installed it. They were from facilities, so they were getting paid anyhow. So I appreciate that. They got a light, shelter and a bench, and a trash can at Camino Plaza. So they can, instead of just standing there in the rain, they can actually get out of the rain. So that's nice for them. I'm sure they appreciate that. Very good use of available resources. And then, real quick, when they gave you your sticker for the window, did they give you one for the Camino office?
Probably not. I think we just got one, yeah.
I know the chair of the board over there. I'll see to it that you get
That's
another.
excellent. Yeah, great idea.
Okay. I maybe may have
Very
noted.
good.
Yeah, so you got one over there too, so,
Yeah.
because they're.
They're following the same practices we are
Yes.
here.
Yep. And with that, we can move on to, anybody, question? Okay, Paul?
Okay. Sure. Just waiting for the TV to warm up there.
Have to do anything?
Okay, so for January 2016, financial report. During January, we had a decrease in cash of almost $500,000. A large portion of that was our WISTIP insurance. We caught up with the cycle payment to WISTIP, which is about $350,000, $350,000. And our contract grant money was delayed. We received that in early February. So the combination of those two elements decreased our cash by that $479,500. On a positive note, I should say that our sales tax revenue has been up. It's about 16% higher than it was January previous year, and about 13% higher than what we had budgeted. So that's really good news. About $75,000 in January. One of our large expenses continues to remain low. It's about $35,000 in fuel in January. And I should also say it's about a 12-year low, so we're really experiencing low fuel prices right now. As you can see, that insurance payment and delayed state reimbursements, how it affects cash. So we retreated a little bit, right about that $2 million mark.
But that's going to improve significantly for February.
Yeah, that should go up for February. I would anticipate we're going to stay on that same trajectory. Of course, we're saving money for our capital payments that we budgeted this year. And this is how it sorts out cash-wise if we wanted to break it out and show the different reserve funds that we set up. And you can see what's really happened is we've reduced our operating cash. Our other funds are remaining constant. This is a picture of 2 years of ridership, and it's showing where we are in relation to where we were maybe 2 years ago. So we've seen a reduction in our ridership for a number of reasons, but I'm sure the price of gas is one of them. And it was also a result of cutting back on our routes. I was a little bit curious about the relationship between fuel prices and ridership. And for me, this is a really interesting topic. I went back 15 years, and I looked at unleaded and diesel fuel prices. And I also looked at our ridership numbers over that period. And what I found is that there's a really strong correlation between the price of fuel and our ridership. When the price of fuel goes up, our ridership goes up. And when it drops, our ridership drops. Now, what I did there is I kind of like outlined a couple periods in time when that wasn't true. And one of them was that starting early 2009, during the recession, that time period where prices dropped and ridership continued. And the same was true in early 2000s, and I think there was a little bit of a recession in that time as well. So I think the conclusion I can draw from that is people's pocketbooks are a big factor as to whether they are riding the bus. Mm-hmm. What I did, so from these two graphs, what I did is I drew a correlation between the two to see how closely they were allied, and it looks like they are pretty closely allied. Red in this case is the unleaded price per gallon, or price per gallon for unleaded fuel, and the blue is our ridership. So you can see how closely they're allied. So,
Except for that 2009
yeah,
anomaly there.
well, wherever it's diverging, it looks like it has something to do with the economy. There was that recession in 2009, and I think we were recovering kind of from the dot-com problems in early, late 90s, early 2000s. So that's all I really have to say.
Yeah, well, and then yes, because the economy went to the toilet in the early 2000s with 9/11. But
Right.
yeah, I think it is, it's a no-brainer. People's discretionary income has a direct impact on the decisions they make.
What I found striking is that it was very tightly aligned, because you can see when the red line goes up, for example, the blue line follows almost immediately. So it's a really tight correlation.
Yeah, you go to 2010, 2011, gas got up to $4.50 a gallon. And at that time, I was going through about 120 gallons a week in my truck. I was commuting to Auburn and Gallup and stuff to work.
Oh my gosh.
And that was a direct indicator of, when it got to the point where it was costing me more per week to drive back and forth to work than it was between my vehicle allowance and my wages, I was going in the hole. And I said, well, you gotta guarantee me more hours per trip, or
Okay, so that's all I have.
Good job, Paul, that's
$3,000
interesting.
an hour job because you can't afford to work there.
That's right. Well, that's what a lot of families have kids have to put in daycare, and daycare's not so expensive.
Right? Anybody got any questions for Paul? I have one, or a comment, or a question, whatever. I just, because I've brought this up many times. The one thing I still have a hard time with is on your cash summary report, total cash on 1/31/16. I realize that's what we actually have in the bank, but I would greatly appreciate that those monies that are assigned funds need to be not included in that total cash on hand. Because that makes it look like we've got a little over $2 million that is ready to be spent, and we do not. 900,000 of that is in assigned money. It cannot be used for something else. So it gives a disproportionate view on what we actually have to work with. Those other monies, that other $895,259 is earmarked for specific purposes, and it's not to be considered operating cash.
I'll work on that.
Yeah.
Maybe the title could be changed to be from total
Yeah,
cash to something else.
Because it makes it look like we're up to our balls of money. and we're not.
You could stick with the total cash, but then underneath it, and of that total cash,
Yeah, right.
X
Yeah,
amount
because-
is,
Yeah, because when it comes to certain times, people,
yeah,
Like tie it more directly to the box and the breakout.
right.
Bruce,
Hey, Bruce.
welcome.
Sorry.
That's okay, it's one of those days. I just figured everybody was boycotting because I was here. All right, so we can move on now. We have a quorum. Now, we've already, just to catch you up here, Bruce, let me get back to my script. We've already got a director's report, chair report, and financial analyst report. And so we are ready to move on now to our regular meeting and our approval of our agenda.
I will move to approve the consent agenda.
Well, you have to approve the agenda first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I will approve the agenda.
Have a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Now, we'll look at the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that as well.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Monthly reports we made, and now we're on to our regular agenda, and we're going to start off with item number 1, which is Resolution 316, the Board of Directors, and it is to cancel county warrants 30438 and 30827. And Paul?
Yeah, I can talk briefly about that. There are 2 checks that we issued in 2013, and the recipients, they're very small amounts. The recipients were contacted, and they didn't respond. We just couldn't locate them. And before our treasurer, Island County Treasurer, can remove those checks from their list, they need us to remove it from ours officially and then send that word to them. And then we'll kind of like take them off the books. But we made every effort we could to ask them to cash those checks, and we couldn't find them. Very small amounts to begin with.
Yeah.
So we're needing to write those off the books.
Okay, I would move to pass resolution number 3-16 of the Board of Directors of the Island County Public Transportation Benefit Area Corporation, canceling Island County warrants numbers 30438 and number 30827. 30827.
I'll second.
A motion and a second to approve Resolution 316, the Island County Board of Directors. Any further discussion? Yes.
Paul, do the checks or the warrants, do they have a time specific, like valid for 6 months from this issue date on them?
Yeah, I'm sure they do. The banks usually have some restrictions on the time period in which you can cash them. Sometimes they'll extend that or take them beyond that time. Our time frame is about a year. We'll let people cash, and if they don't do that, then we contact them and ask them if they will do so. In this case, it's been longer than that.
Yeah.
And we really just need to get them off the books.
I understand that, I just thought that,
They just go away automatically.
yeah, that's what I.
That was going to be my question, because I'm going, my God, it's been 3 years, or 2.5 years anyway, and I know most checks, like if you get a refund from something or whatever, or especially if you get something from the government, it'll say, void after 90 days from issue date or whatever.
Yeah, I'll look at the check and see whether it states that, but, yeah, and as far, it just doesn't go away from our system. What happens is, we incur an expense, but then when we do the reconciliation, it's one of those reconciling items. It just hangs out there, and it does so also for the treasurer, so
Treasurer,
we
yeah.
both just want to get them off our books.
Absolutely. It drives me, I reconcile my checkbook every month, and it just drives me nuts. I'll sit back and go, I have to do this shit. Okay. So I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 3-16. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. And item number 2 is Resolution 416 of the Board of Directors, Island County Public Transportation Benefit Area, adopting revised island transit procurement policies and procedures. Ken, did you want to address this one?
I can do it then
So
too.
you got it, Paul? Okay.
First of all, I should state that we have an updated sheet here that actually 2 corrections to the policy need to be made, the same correction but in 2 places. What we're asking is that the board give the executive director the authority to spend budgeted money, approved budgeted money, up to $100,000 in line with the FTA's procurement policies, which are, I could reference, it's document 4220.1F is the procurement policy that they issue, and what we're asking is so that we avoid situations like we had the other day where we had budgeted expenses in excess of the $25,000, which is the current policy, to align that with the federal policy of $100,000 so that we can just conduct business in a normal way.
We talked about this last meeting.
We did talk about it last meeting.
Yeah.
And the policy requires 2 changes from $25,000 to $100,000 on page 41.
I would move to pass resolution number 4-16, adopting the revised Island Transit procurement policies and procedures.
Second. I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 416, adopting revised Island Transit policy, or procurement policies and procedures. Any other comment? I like the idea that this brings us in line with FTA policy. I would think that this would be an audit, something we can look at on audit, something like that, so it just brings us in line with the FTA. And it is, just so the public's clear, this is not a blank check. This is for budgeted items only, okay? So it's stuff that's been approved through the budgeting process, but typically they would have to come back and get an okay. And it just streamlines it. So, hearing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carried unanimously. And then we have item number 3, which is selection for consultant of employee compensation firm. And Bruce, Ken gave us a rundown on these while you were waiting on you.
We had a meeting the other day about that.
Do you have anything you want to put in on it, or?
I don't know what you said, but I'm sure you did it all.
Yeah, Ken was telling us the board, or the committee recommended Cabot Dow Associates. And even though it's for a little bit more than was budgeted initially for,
But much less than the
but much less than the 55,000 that Hay Group wants. We kind of discussed it in depth, so I would entertain a motion to approve.
I would make that motion.
Move to approve Cabot Dow. Is that it in there? So I have a motion. What am I doing here? To approve Cabot Dow and Associates, or Cabot Dow Associates, not and Associates, out of Bellevue, Washington, to do our salary study recommendation for non-represented employees in the amount of $32,175. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? Motion carries unanimously.
Do we have a second?
Hmm?
Did we get a second?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You guys are good. You're tag teaming. And then, last but not least, we are coming to item number 4, which is authorization to schedule a public hearing regarding proposed implementation of fares on routes 411W, 411C, and proposed 412 on March 14, 2016, at a special meeting to begin at 9:30 a.m. in the Allen Transit Operations Building.
and move to authorize a public hearing for March 14th, 2016, starting at 9:30 a.m.
In this building.
in this building.
I have a motion and a second to schedule a public hearing regarding proposed implementation of fares on 411 West, Whitby, 411 Plano, and 412 on March 14, 2016, beginning at 9:30 a.m. in the Allen Operations Administrative Building. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Motion carries unanimously. So we put that on their schedule there. And now is time set aside for public input and comments.
Great.
Yes, ma'am. Sir?
Mr. Chairman, I do remember one additional item I had under my report, which kind of coincides with this business item number 4. In fact, that's what reminded me of it.
Okay.
Informational item. We have so far held 2 meetings, 2 public meetings for the fare increase. One in Oak Harbor and one in Camino. Commissioner Johnson was at the Oak Harbor meeting, and Luke, you were at the Camino meeting. Oak Harbor had approximately 8 people attend. Oak Harbor had Camino had 20. We still have additional meetings scheduled for both of those locations prior to the board's final action to approve the final fare resolution. So we're still gathering information per our schedule. I also want to add that so far we have collected, both in hard copy and online, we've collected 150 completed surveys. Which I think is pretty good. And I suspect we're going to be receiving many more as time goes on. So it's kind of a quick status report on how we're moving forward on that. Everything is moving along according to our work plan for implementation. And I do want to note that where we do need to either acquire certain supplies or equipment or make certain notifications or do certain things regarding the finalization of fares and the implementation of Route 412, we are holding back on any significant items until the official final approval of the board on the adoption of the fares. So we don't want to go out and start making changes or acquiring certain certain supplies or equipment that we've already brought to your attention. We don't want to start acquiring that those items until the adoption of the final fare policy. So we're holding back on that just so we're not jumping the gun on it.
Yeah, well, I think that makes good sense, because they're, number one, there's no guarantee that it's going to happen.
Right.
You know, there's still more meetings to go through and a formal hearing, which just because there's a hearing by no means is an indication of the outcome.
And right now, the scheduled board action is for the March 28th meeting, which still gives us plenty of time to acquire supplies and equipment, do all of that after board approval, or board action. I won't say approval, board action.
Yeah. So.
That's the very reason why there's no meetings at the South End right now.
Right. In fact, I did have a resident from Freeland, I think it was, that had contacted Helen, and Helen contacted me to respond to the resident. He was wondering why there weren't fair meetings being held on the south part of the island. So I wrote him back, I emailed him and talked to him on the phone about the process and what we're doing, and that didn't really affect residents on the south side of the island. And so he fully understood and misunderstood what we were doing, so yeah.
There's going to be a bit of that, I think. There's going to be with all this is happening up here. And I'm sure we're going to get.
And I think that's where this gentleman, I think that's what he was reading and wondered why they're, because he asked, why are you holding meetings on the north side of the town, north side of the island, not the south side? But there will be meetings if there is discussion in the future of local fairs. Meetings will be all over.
Sure. And on the subject of meetings, we added one for March 10th on Camino a little bit later in the day, and request if perhaps, and I know Rick's not going to be back by then, I think you'll be up for maybe one of you. I've got another commitment in the evening of March 10th. I'll be there for this meeting on the 2nd, but the one on the 10th, I had a prior commitment on my calendar that I wouldn't need to be at.
That was kind of a late add-on.
Yeah, it was a last minute thing, because there were some people, it's going to be from
7 to 8.
7 to 8. The reason being, there are a lot of people that use the survey that we wanted a little bit later so they can come have input.
Okay, where at?
The Camino multipurpose right now.
Blue building.
I can check.
By the animal shelter.
I would really appreciate it. Yeah, so that we have somebody from the board there. It's important.
I will check.
But it is, it's,
I think that was very helpful at the last meeting that you were there and were able to.
well, I think they like getting a little bit of a history behind it and the whys. So it seems to, when you can give people an explanation as to the thought process, it seems to help.
And if
You know,
you-
the meeting on the 2nd is 5 to 6.
Yeah, yeah, and I will be there for that one. We've got work session that day, but we should be done, I'm sure we'll be done by 2:30, so I'll leave Cookville straight over there. I'll be there.
The next Woodby meeting is March 8th from 6 to 7 at the Oak Harbor Senior Center.
And I'm planning to go to that one. I couldn't go to the first one. What was the time?
6 to 7.
Senior center.
So it is a good, we've covered a wide variety of times to get people where it should be able to meet their schedules.
And in those meetings, Jackie, if and when you attend, there are 4 or 5 of us staff that are at each meeting to, help you with any questions you have or whatever too.
Right. But I assumed.
We got some, I know on Camino, we got some really, really good, and typical over there. We get good attendance and good,
It's positive.
positive
Yeah.
input from the community, and, I mean, I simple show of hands, I mean, it's amazing that when geographically you go from this island over to that island, when I says, of all you people in this room that use the bus, how many of you are willing to pay fares? And better than 3/4 of them, they say. I mean, they have no problem with that issue, they just want to ensure that the continuity of the service is there. So, that's a good thing. Okay. At any rate, public comment, which is, I think, and I'm going to talk, we need to talk to Rick about this public comment. It's supposed to be at the beginning of the meeting. Anyway, because this is where the agenda was set up for today, we were good. We've got time set aside for members of the public to speak to the board about subjects of concern or interest or items not already set aside for public hearing. You can ask questions, but they may or may not be answered by the board. Please get up, direct your comments to the board, and please state your name and address clearly. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And if you have anything more lengthy than that, we're welcome to entertain it via written word. Thank you. Shelley? Sarah? Sarah Nail? I can't
I'm
do
just
it,
glad to be
Josie.
here again, and I just wanted to announce that Mystery Weekend, the 32nd one, is being held in Langley this weekend.
Right. My children are going on the bus as soon as they get off school. The bags are already loaded in Mom's car. She's taking them to the bus, and they're going to Grandma and Grandpa's to do Mystery Weekend. Yeah, my son goes down. He's been going since he was like 6
Well, you
years
know,
old.
I've been playing the detective,
Yeah.
the shortest retired Texas Ranger,
Oh, wow.
Isabella Bertha Fuzz. I.B. Fuzz
Love it.
in Texas.
Very good. Well, thank you for that. And Gail, you have anything you want?
Just a couple of them. I don't really know what to say with some of them, but for the 411 and 412 meetings, I made a comment at the open meeting that public advertisement wasn't really done so well. It wasn't done, public notice wasn't done, I don't think, to get a maximum of, people there to speak upon it. So, instead of segregating what part of information people know or what's posted on the buses or what have you, it's only select areas where select information is given. So instead of letting everybody know everything, it's not making sense coming out. But, advertisement on that wasn't all that wonderful. And then if there's, to prevent me from having to do a public records request, if we can find out who those warrants were made out to, instead of me having to request and waste that time. And then for the board, adopting the transit procurement policy and procedures, I'm waiting an answer back from the FTA on that. I haven't received my FTA